A young 22-year-old stands alone in their bedroom. It just so happens that today, the 13th of April, is the anniversary of their first fandom ever via crazy webcomic. Though they have been participating in fandoms for years now, it is only today that they shall be given a name. What will the name of this young adult be? So I've been sitting at my desk for, I want to say, 30 minutes now trying to decide how I want to begin this video. Normally, I script everything. I write just because when I'm just going off of the top of my head, I pause for too long, I say and way too long, I feel like I am a rambler. I mean, I'm literally rambling right now because I'm unscripted. Hold on, let's start over, hold on. Hello, my name is Eddie, welcome to my channel, and I've talked about Homestuck a couple times before on this channel. In fact, I'm only realizing now and feeling conflicted over, but I consider that webcomic to be my first introduction into fandom. I got into it in middle school, which I know as a 6th grader I should not have been reading Homestuck, but all this to say that it had a choke hold on me. Between reading fanfics, listening to fan-made songs, role-playing with friends, quotive quizzes, if anyone remembers that site, I interacted with the fandom as if it was my full-time job. Saying all this, it should come as no surprise that a couple of my OCs were once cringy, self-indulgent Trollsonas. It's so funny to admit that, like it's not already obvious. Can you spot the ex-Homestuck troll? Is it Parker, Matthew, or fucking Dakari Barris? This is so stupid. But alas, if you've been making OCs for over a decade like I have, you know that some manage to find a permanent space in your brain while others sit in a dark pit waiting to see the light of day. Well, today is one such character's lucky day because I am going to be writing and redesigning a character sheet for my very first fandom insert, my Trollsona. So sit back, grab a drink, and draw along as I slowly lose my mind trying to recapture that old OC magic. One quick disclaimer, this is not like a Homestuck recap or explanation or anything like that. God, I could not do it properly even if I tried. So mainly the times that I do explain like what happens in the comic is mostly going to be through the lens of me inserting my OC into the story, so there is some like canon divergence, obviously. If you yourself haven't read Homestuck and want to, or want to reread it, or whatever the case may be, because of the death of Flash, Homestuck, which is a very interactive sort of comic, kind of went down, and there's, from what I understand, they're trying to get it back up. So the only way to read it is by installing something on your computer. I will have that linked if you would like to do that. Otherwise, if you are only on mobile, I will link in the description a playlist of a Let's Read. It's iconic, it's very good, I've listened to it, highly recommend. By the way, I'm quoting a lot of this from the wiki, from Reddit, from Tumblr blogs. I will make sure to link everything that I use, that way you can kind of look yourself. Most of these blogs that I've gotten my information from do analyses of all the classes and aspects, so if you wanted to do your own research for your own characters, it's really fun, I recommend. Anyways, sorry for the tangent. There's gonna be a lot of them in the video. Let's get to looking at my old art. Alright, so I'm currently recording this before I've begun the character sheet. I tried finding my old drawings of her so I could go off of that, but unfortunately I was only able to find a handful of old drawings on my Facebook. I used to draw her so much, but I lost a lot of my childhood drawings, so unfortunately this is all I really have to go off of. Sorry, I'm looking at them. Let's take a moment to go through these. Hold on. I remember the context of some of these was, I had those like OC art meme where it was like, number 1, draw them in like the school uniform, number 2, draw them like in formal clothes and stuff like that. Sorry. Look at that fucking hand. I have not gotten any better. Oh, the photo quality is so bad, dude. Look at that shadow! Like, the faces, you can tell I was in my beginning to watch anime for the first time, like, phase. I'm so sorry. So, if you want to know who, like, the other characters are, I basically had a whole, group of Trollsonas. I didn't develop almost any of them except this one guy here did in fact become my OC Zenus. That's one of the main characters in my main OC universe comic thing. Looking through these photos is so funny. Here, hold on, we're gonna put up some of my old actual Homestuck fan art. Look at this shit. I was obsessed with drawing silhouettes and stuff like that. Oh my god. I actually think they kind of hold up. They're cute. Hold on, wait. I kind of cooked here. That's so funny. Oh my god, the way I drew Darklear. This is so funny. This is so good. Does anyone remember lyric stocks? You would go, hold on. You'd go online. YouTube. Okay. You would go on YouTube. There they are. And basically you would create a Homestuck music video. Obviously they were all just illustrations. They weren't really animations. Oh my god. Hold on. I will be right back. I'm going to watch a couple of these. That's crazy that they have stuff from 4 years ago. People are still creating this stuff. Hold on. Okay, so the idea is to take this kind of annoying Mary Sue-esque character and expand on her, round her out, make her not necessarily less Mary Sue-ish. I mean, okay, listen, that's the goal, but the thing is, I don't make fandom-related OCs anymore. Everything that I make is in the context of, my own universe, so it doesn't matter if a couple of my OCs are overpowered because it makes sense within my space. I do actually think this is going to be a bit of a challenge for me because I do want to place her within the canon of Homestuck, even though I know it doesn't make sense. Who cares? We're just gonna have fun. Yeah, that's the goal of this, is to ultimately have fun. So I know that the image quality on the old middle school drawings are pretty bad, so I don't blame you if you had a hard time seeing it, but my old Trollsona, I don't know why I've been struggling to say that. Anyways, my old Trollsona has the same horns and sign as Equius, because for some reason I thought that every troll in a certain bloodline just shared the same sign. I know at this point it's a family crest almost, but of course at the time I thought, oh, I'm a Sagittarius, which means I'm an indigo blood, which means I have the same sign and horns as Equius, even though in my canon we weren't even related. It was just because we were the same blood color. I don't know. So obviously the first thing I had to change was her sign. I made it a point to keep her an indigo blood just because of the extended zodiac did confirm that your zodiac sign is the blood type that you would have. It just depends on if you're Prospect or Durst and then what god tier aspect you have. And I decided not to completely follow that, or at least, not to give her the actual extended zodiac sign that she would have, because I wanted to be completely original. So obviously what you saw me drawing next to the base body was ideas for different signs that she could have, obviously based around the Sagittarius arrow, and then I use that sign to kind of determine the horns, and then from the little things I remember about her lore back in the day, I kind of use that as inspiration for the rest of her design. And speaking of lore, I guess it is time we get into it. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous because I this entire month has just been me constantly taking psychic damage from remembering all of the cringiness that I was in high school. I have to keep pausing and then redoing my voiceover lines because I just keep there's a pounding in my chest. I feel like I'm gonna vomit. Anyways, back to the actual lore. Her original name was just my name because my name is actual 6 letters long in real life. I do not feel like keeping that name, again, to kind of un-Mary Sue her. Also, I think it would be awkward to refer to myself constantly throughout this video. I don't know, it just makes me uncomfortable. So we are going to be renaming her. My Trollsona's name is Pieria. It is a regional unit in Greece that is home to Orpheus the Muses and also to Mount Olympus. Basically, my Trollsona is an artist who dreams of becoming a great artisan for the High Bloods when she grows up. I originally wanted to name her after one of the Greek muses, but either they didn't fit the 6-letter naming scheme that the trolls have, or I just didn't think that specific muse fit with her, so ended up with Pieria instead, and I don't know, I think it's really cute. And then as for Pieria's last name, Rolfs, she is named after Christian Rolf, a German expressionist painter. He was actually inspired by Vincent van Gogh's work, and if you know anything about Vincent van Gogh, you know, the first thing you think of is Starry Night, the blue painting. Well, he actually, Rolfs, had a lot of blue in his painting. I specifically chose him because a lot of his work does have like a really striking blue, a striking indigo hue to them. Yeah, you know, artist, blue paint, she's a blue blood. You get where I'm coming from. So as for pre-Hivebent Pieria, she was friends with like Vriska, Terezi, Aridin, you know, that kind of group, and engaged with some flarping with them. You know how like Aridin and Terezi and especially Vriska would kind of roleplay as their ancestors. I think Pieria also in the beginning had an interest in learning who her ancestor was and roleplaying along with them, but she ends up finding out that her ancestor, who used to work under the Grand High Blood, left to, in her words, join some low blood cult, and just kind of thinks that's like super lame and uncool. So she decided to quit the whole flarping thing pretty early on, much to the dismay of both Aridin and Vriska. One, because Vriska was just kind of like, who gives a shit about your shitty ancestor? I thought you were cool. You're just abandoning us like that? So much for loyalty amongst friends. Do you see how I was able to pull a Vriska impersonation out just like that? It's in me. And now that I've done that, I have to commit to voicing all of the characters if they talk. Let me have this. And 2, because Aridin had asked Pieria to mediate between Vriska and his Kismisitude and become their auspicious. I think that's how you pronounce it, because Pieria was leaving the flarping scene and therefore breaking up with the both of them. I feel like I need to explain quadrants real quick to those who don't know Homestuck. Okay, hold on. There are 4 different types of romance recognized by troll culture called the quadrants. First one is basically your typical like human romantic romance, that is mate ship. Then you have the best friend sort of quadrant, which is more allegiance. Then you have your enemies to lovers quadrant, which is kismeses. And then you have auspicious, I think is how you pronounce it. I've never really known. Is basically when the enemies to lovers gets way too toxic, you include a third one to kind of mediate and make sure it is a healthy enemies to lovers. But yeah, she had that auspicious relationship with Vriska and Aridin until she broke it off. The part where she does break it off to them, they're in person, and Aridin and Vriska and Pieria all kind of get into like a squabble, like an argument. Obviously, they're both very revenge-oriented people, so a scuffle kind of happens, and Aridin ends up killing Pieria's Lucy, who I will draw at some point, but for now imagine a cool unicorn that she rides around on. When the whole revenge plot starts happening with Team Scourge and Team Charge, I think there's a moment Terezi is, thinking about getting Vriska back for killing Aradia, and she's just like, I should have seen this. Hold on, I gotta do the voice. I should have seen the signs. I should have stopped it when she killed Pieria's Lucy. But thankfully, Pieria doesn't blame Terezi. They're actually pretty cool through the entire events. Pre-Hivebent, during Hivebent, and then something later kind of changes that dynamic, but I'll talk about it when I get to it. The main thing about Pieria is that she specifically makes her paint from the blood of trolls lower on the hemo spectrum than her. I know, it's very much like, I'm not like other trolls, I'm crazy. It gets worse. It gets so much worse. One of the biggest things about this character was her, like, huge, massive crush on Gamzee. I hate saying this out loud. I don't know what I was on in middle school. Gamzee was a fictional character crush that I can't find any counterparts to this day. Like, he's not my regular taste in characters. But yeah, I had a huge crush on him, so therefore my OC had a huge crush on him. It was a huge self-ship thing, you know how it is. So like basically she started off as like a really cool, like normal person who just wanted to make art, you know, was friends with all the original 12 trolls. And then during the act where Gamzee kind of loses it, becomes sober, he does end up attacking her, but he doesn't take her life, so she ends up kind of becoming like crazy, insane, and obsessed with him afterwards. This is such a funny comparison to make, but it's like if Joker and Harley Quinn were a ship for a secret third kind of annoying person. Also, I hate that ship, so I don't know why this was a thing. Alas, it is so baked into her character at this point that instead of just like getting rid of it and starting from scratch, I am going to keep it. I am just going to try to expand on it, make it more interesting. And to help me begin that process, I kind of make a list of what every Homestuck character / Homestuck troll has in order to slowly develop a concept and idea. Starting from left to right, the first one is my Trollsona during the Hivebent era. I give her a cute little light blue apron covered in bloodstains. That way you can kind of immediately tell like what her deal is about. And then I also give her long pigtails. I was trying to choose a hair design that I hadn't seen on any of the Homestuck characters, that way she could stand out a little bit. And then I give her some cute yellow sneakers because not only is it my favorite color, but I do like the way the yellow balances out all of the yellow that's on like her head. And I do want to say that it is absolutely intentional that the stains on her apron are only lower class trolls, because I think she is someone who respects the caste system. She won't attack or, you know, steal the blood of anyone higher level than her. So other indigo bloods or the purple, the violets, you know, she wants to work under them when she grows up, so she doesn't want to seem disrespectful in any way. She's kind of like, it's her own way of kissing up to the hierarchy. I think it's only natural that she is a prospect dreamer. To quote the Extended Zodiac's definition of a prospect dreamer, marked by a flexible optimism, the personalities of prospect dreamers are reactive and intuitive. They naturally exist in the present rather than look for the future or obsess over the past. In making decisions, prospect dreamers tend to rely on gut instinct and whatever emotions they are experiencing at the moment. This makes them quick to act and reliable in a crisis, but it can also make them capricious. They have trouble thinking things through, and their feelings towards specific situations and decisions can change from day to day. They solve problems with creativity rather than cold logic, often seeing multiple options with ease and clarity. Because they generally take things as they come, prospect dreamers are less rebellious than they are adaptable. Instead of struggling against authority, they will find a way to coexist with it. Possibly because they are so instinctual and flexible, they like having a defined set of rules, a safety net for their passionate lives. Naturally trusting, they have trouble with deception or hiding their true selves, and will often worry about what others think of them. The self they project onto the world is often not under their control. Okay, so now that I've regurgitated a bunch of lore and theory at you, how does this relate to my Trollsona? Well, for starters, Prospect is governed by the idea of fate. Everything is absolute. Everything is bright and revealing, leaving nothing to be wondered about. It's why their clouds are prophetic. There is a path, and therefore you can see down it because the path is definite. My Trollsona is someone who adheres to the hemospectrum because that's just how it is, baby. She sees her artistic talents as something she was meant to use in service to the Highbloods, like it's her destiny. When she paints, her paintbrush is a quill and the canvas is the book. Her paint strokes are words that tell tales of ancient troll bonds and battles, like how artists of the Renaissance would depict biblical stories. I don't know, a lot of Prospect and Durst stuff is never super explained in depth. I mean, Hussey had a couple posts about it explaining versus like passive and active classes and how that determines your lunar sway. So for example, Durst Dreamers are incredibly active players, whereas Prospect Dreamers are more passive. They let things happen to them. For example, you have Dave, who is a Durst Dreamer, and he does a lot of like time travel, timeline shenanigans. And then you have like John, who, is always led around by the trolls, and he's the air of breath, so he's always letting the wind take him where he needs to go. But, it gets even more complicated because then Jade, who is an extremely passive player, spends a good chunk of the comic just being asleep for key moments in the story, and then suddenly when she God tiers to the Witch of Space, and that is an incredibly active sort of class, and she starts manipulating space and doing a lot of different things in the comic. So relating back to my fan troll, Prospect is a very passive class. I think she spends a good chunk of the story kind of just hanging out, making art, hanging out with friends. She kind of lets a lot of bad people get away with just doing horrible shit to her, which is in relation to her god tier, the Mage of Blood. It is ironically theorized to be a very active class. Unfortunately, not much is known about the mage or the aspect of blood, but I'm going to do my best to kind of explain what this god tier is, because I kind of used the god tier specifically as a basis to decide what kind of things my fan troll would do in the comic. In essence, mages work to understand their aspect and use that understanding to their benefit. Mages actively know/understand their aspect or know it through their aspect for the benefit of themselves. Mages tend to have personal knowledge of their aspect, and they'll usually act on this knowledge. Mages also tend to suffer from their aspect. That's very important. In what ways does my Trollsona suffer? Well, their aspect is blood. Again, to quote the extended zodiac this time for the aspect of blood, those bound to the aspect of blood draw their strength from bonds, from the trust and camaraderie that blooms among a group of people who all share a single vision. Bloodbound are absolutely leaders, but they inhabit more of an inspirational role than a commanding one. They are prophets rather than generals, giving others the strength and motivation to keep fighting. The bloodbound can dispense excellent advice even when their own lives and interpersonal relationships are disasters. They can be very do as I say, not as I do types. A bloodbound can often be found on a sinking ship, forcing an endeavor forward with sheer stubborn force of will. No matter how bad things go, a bloodbound can always count on friends and allies. At their best, they are charismatic, uplifting, and magnetic. At their worst, they can be sullen, unkind, and set in their ways. Taking this excerpt from a Reddit post I found, mages gaining knowledge through experience of their aspect means they experience everything about it. From the good to the bad often standing out more than the good. This is prominent with Solux, who gained knowledge from his aspect to help warn the others, but also experienced hearing voices of the dead. Because, he's the Mage of Doom. So Mage of Blood would most likely be someone who has had a long line of very toxic and abusive relationships in their life, and has probably been stepped on, looked down upon, manipulated, and hurt more times than they can count. It could be a player who has unfortunately attractive abusive narcissists in their life, or has been stuck in relationships they're unhappy in because they were guilt-tripped by the other person to stay in it. Tied down by toxic people, obligations to partners who don't do the same for you. Mage of Blood has been through all of this and knows all too well what it feels like to be used. Because of this, the Mage of Blood would make an excellent person to consult personal information to, a counselor even. The Mage of Blood would be excellent at giving relationship advice to others and even uplifting their own self-esteem. Mage of Blood would be a natural empath and would likely connect to others largely through the fact that they feel what the other person feels deeply. Mage of Blood would be a great strategist and diplomat for their session, making the cool-headed right decisions. Okay, I know that was a lot of words at you, but I feel like I needed to explain all of that in order to kind of get a picture on who my Trollsona is. And I know what you're thinking, Eddie, you just described an edgy Mary Sue character, the kind of person where everyone simultaneously loves and hates, and they're powerful and they're a leader, but they're also underestimated. But remember, I'm trying to take a character that was an overpowered, unfair character and turn and round that use those traits to round her out which is what I'm going to try to do now. And how do you round out a character? Well, I am going to give her flaws. That's right, we're going to make her an asshole. You think I'm joking, but the thing is about Homestuck and characters is that, like, they're all kind of shitty people. So, I kind of wanted to shitify my OC. Okay, flaw number 1. She is troll racist. Sorry, that's just really funny to say. She is a firm believer in the blood caste system and that you should respect those higher than them, and looks down on the lower bloods, as in like Aradia, Tavros, Solux. She doesn't really interact with them very much. Karkat especially, him and Pyria have a lot of petty squabbles in the beginning as to who should be the leader. You know, Equius, Vriska, her, Karkat, they all are trying to become that unanimous leader. But for Karkat especially, she hates him. She thinks he's kind of a loser for hiding his blood. She's just kind of like, well, obviously he's a low blood, because why else would he be hiding it? He's a bitch ass. I'll go toe to toe with him. I don't care. She does think Equius is a bit of a tryhard. They kind of have a, I don't want to say kiss me Satu because there's no attraction. There's just pure, like, they both think of each other as a tool. Flaw number 2 is Pyria is egotistical and a little bit of a hypocrite. A little bit of a shit talker. I think those are 3 flaws actually, so flaw number 2, 3, and 4. For example, her and Vriska, the reason why they got along is because they're just kind of like, well, look at this asshole over here thinks he's blah 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 blah, and look at us, we're not doing anything wrong. Oh, and before I forget, because I don't know where else to put this in the video, Pyria does actually have a relationship with Kanaya. There's maybe some unrequited pale feelings there. I think Pyria wanted to pursue that with Kanaya, but because Kanaya used to be, or, you know, at that point in time, had been in a Moira allegiance with Vriska, and Vriska was kind of just like, you meddled with me in Eridan, and look where that got you. You think you want to try anything with Kanaya? Again, just like being a total asshole to Pyria. So she never pursued it past the pale feelings that she had. They have a shared love for the arts. They enjoy romance books together. One thing that I think starts off as a flaw, but is kind of like a character development moment for Pyria, is that she is pretty emotionally distant in the beginning. Ashen relationships, or auspicious, I'm just gonna call them Ashen relationships, I cannot say that word, are described by Kanaya as pretty labor intensive and emotional, like kind of not fun, but for Pyria, it kind of comes naturally to her. She's always been that friend that can give advice really easily when it comes to relationships, when it comes to family, when it comes to squabbles. I think she's actually the one, like, Fefri has a conversation before telling Eridan that the Moira allegiance is off with Pyria, and Pyria's like, you just gotta tell him, man, you just gotta be honest, like, he doesn't like me, but he loves you and he respects your opinion, so you should just do it. And so, you know, she's the one that gave her that confidence boost. Like I said earlier, she doesn't tell Kanaya about the pale feelings because she doesn't really want to get into that. She doesn't even interact with Areti and Tavros, and they were in the flirting with Terezi and Vriska. You know, like, she's a very kind of closed off person for being an emotional support system for the, like, Terezi and Vriska and Kanaya, a little bit Fefri. She doesn't even tell anyone that she has a crush on Gamzee. It's not until after the attack that she manages to speak up, and she actually breaks down to Karkat. But I'm getting ahead of myself. She only does a little bit of trolling the beta kids in the beginning, mostly because she sees John and, you know, how he types in that bright blue. So she's naturally like, fellow Indigo blood, let me get on that, let me chat with you up real quick. And then as soon as she finds out he's just like a red blood, her mind kind of breaks a little. She's like bright red, like candy, but like, that's not a thing. It low-key kind of changes her worldview, like, oh, if there's not blood, then how do you decide who's in charge? And John is just like, oh, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, like, people just work hard, and then they are the ones that rise up to the ranks, and, you know, it's just about having that leaderly instinct, I guess, or, you know, some positive bullshit like that. And Pyria's just like, just about having leaderly instinct. Whoa. And, you know, that becomes a sort of moment where she kind of looks at the trolls differently, right? She remembers how Aradia took charge over Equius, how Karkat really kind of is the leader of their group for not really knowing his blood color, how Aridin, you know, especially after them breaking up, he's a tool, he's a useless tool, and, you know, as much as she likes Gamzee, he hasn't really contributed much to the team. And she begins talking to Kanaya, and you know, Kanaya has this, like, unspoken respect for Karkat that she actually speaks up about to Pyria, and they have a conversation where she's like, man, maybe I should maybe I've been the asshole this entire time. And she does go to Karkat a little bit more, and they start having conversations that, you know, he's kind of like, ugh, like, what do you want? And she's like, I want to just get to know you, dude. Finally, we're at the part where Gamzee goes sober. She's had a few conversations with him. She doesn't really let on that she's got a crush, but it's like, I mean, in my opinion, I think it's pretty obvious. I don't think he cares because, you know, he's got, like, flushed feelings for Tavros. Anyways, I think before, you know, I had really drilled into your heads that she really respects the Hemo Spectrum. She's got a crush on Gamzee. You'd think, oh, like, he can get away with anything. You know, like how Equius, like, he easily could have killed Gamzee in that moment. Like, he could have retaliated, but he didn't, out of respect for, you know, just the pure fact that Gamzee is a purple blood. She sees Gamzee kill Equius and Nepeta, and then she, you know, at first, like, she tries to hide, he finds her, and he starts attacking her. And at first, she lets him, like, this is her purpose. Like, he's, you know, a higher blood. He gets to do what he wants. But she has a moment where she kind of realizes, no, this isn't my destiny. And, okay, I know this is cringe, but hear me out. I think she has a moment where, like, he already half blinded her. He's got her by the pigtails. He's trying to, like, you know, attack. And she takes her weapon. By the way, at this point, you've probably seen me draw it. She has scissor blades that can act either as, like, a giant scissor weapon or, like, they can detach and become swords. Anyways, she takes one of those and she cuts her hair off. You know, if you've seen Naruto, you know that part where Sakura is also being held by the hair. She's about to get, like, messed up, and then she cuts her hair to free herself, and then she beats the shit out of her ops. Like, that's what I imagine. Like, she manages to cut off her hair and somehow flee from him. But, like, you know what? Maybe if that's too convoluted, maybe I can go back to the Mage of Blood thing. All of the mages and seers, they all kind of have a sort of blindness that they earn. Solix literally says it's how a mage earns their stripes. Maybe it could be one of those things where, like, Pyria thinks, oh, this is how it happens. Like, my love grants me, you know, the power that I seek. But because she has been, like, having these doubts and, like, kind of changing her worldview, she fights back. She does the things she's not supposed to do. And, you know, he grabs her by the pigtails. She cuts them off in order to fight back. He ends up half blinding her anyways. And maybe she, like, gets knocked out. He thinks she's dead. He moves on. I kind of like that more. Ooh, chat. Terezi, when she finds Equius and Nepeta's bodies, she notices Pyria, and Pyria's still unconscious, so Pyria can't tell Terezi that it was Gamzee, not Vriska, so obviously Terezi's still able to take out Vriska. You know, that whole thing happens. During the 3-year arc where, you know, Terezi, Dave, Rose, Kanaya, like, all of those guys are on the meteor together, waiting to go to the new planet, or new timeline, you know, the alpha timeline. Pyria and Karkat actually grow a little closer. They bond over the fact that they feel like fail leaders. They both feel a disconnect in their relationship with Gamzee and Kanaya, not to mention the kismissitude that Terezi and Gamzee get into. Scandalous. You know, Karkat felt flushed for Terezi and Pyria Gamzee, and now here's both of their crushes being in a black relationship that's very toxic. I mean, Gamzee's not even Moirels with Karkat anymore. Like, everything's just falling apart, and they're both kind of victims of it, and it's just... It's just pure angst for the fun of it. Pieria kind of comes to Karkat like, I was supposed to earn my stripes, I was supposed to go blind, like I was supposed to god tier, and I'm nothing to these people. Like, I couldn't even do the one thing that mages do. I feel completely useless. And Karkat's like, I get it, I didn't really do much better, but I mean, you stood up to Gamzee and you had the ability to change and become a better person. Like, sorry, I forgot to do the voice. It's like, I really thought you were like a grade A fucking douchebag. And I still think you were, but like, things have changed and I get you now. I don't think there's like any quadrant feelings between them. I think there's just like a sudden respect between two blood class spects. You know what I mean? Game recognizes game. Loser recognizes loser. I don't know if Pieria lives till the end. I haven't gotten that far. I'll be honest, I think it's unlikely. Part of me thinks like she's the kind of person to sacrifice herself in order to save the rest of the crew, but I also realize the retcon plot in Homestuck kind of renders, or potentially renders that useless. But I do like the idea of her going out with a bang. I don't know. All this to say, I have done a lot of rambling about her. Let's do a quick dubiously canon lightning round. I could not do a Homestuck Trollsona video without adding a trickster mode. It would be a miss. For those of you who don't know what trickster mode is, giant evil sucker, when partaken, gives you crazy alter reality powers and makes you super cheery and wild, and weird Homestuck shenanigans ensue. I don't know, read the comic. It's really weird. I based her off of those sweet, sour, sugary candy straws because I love them. And then I also had a moment where I figured I should draw her as a human. Didn't want to do that, so the way I justified it was by doing an aquarium stuck version. If you don't know, that's an AU where half the cast are humans that work at an aquarium, the other half are the creatures, the mythological creatures that inhabit said aquarium. I made her a human because I think that would make the most sense. She was not an artist but a photographer in this AU who probably again got attacked and lost an eye to like the Gamzee creature that he is, but things are chill, like she doesn't fear him. In fact, I think she's got a cute little relationship where she likes to photograph him anyways. And then I also did the Hemo Spectrum, or like the Homestuck AU. Basically, it's what if the trolls were different blood types, and I made her a jade blood because I think she would be a fashion designer that doesn't want to partake in fashion necessarily herself. She wants other people to engage with it, and she's kind of like, that basic showboaty fashion designer where she's like kind of bitchy, but kind of like in a serving way, like in a fish way, in a gay way. Now on to the ancestors. Before I did the Dancestor, I decided to do the actual ancestor because I thought I could design her, and then because the Dancestor is basically the same character, like I could use that. Whatever. I'm so tired. I've been working on this nonstop for 8 hours. I'm sorry. Let's continue. Let's start over. Whatever. The minstrel, also known as Shemaiah Minstrel Calliope, is an indigo blood who worked as a temple muse for the Grand High Blood. However, at some point she becomes aware of the Signless's teachings, and so she leaves the Dark Carnival and becomes a sort of heretic. She starts singing and using her little instruments that she carries around her to try to teach more of the Signless's teachings. Almost like a priestess, but not really. Like I said, I think heretic describes it a little bit better. Pieria discovered that the minstrel, or Calliope as she went by in her flarp days, left the Grand High Bloods in order to pursue a, again, low blood cult, quote unquote, and just wanted nothing to do with her. So really, not much is known about the rest of her life, though I will spoil it. She was probably executed by the Executioner or Grand High Blood or whatever. Eddie, you might be screaming. There is already a character in Homestuck named Calliope. She was named by Gamzee because Calliope is like an instrument that was used in carnivals. Well, I'm glad you were paying attention. The instrument Calliope that Gamzee names said character after is based off of the Greek muse of epic poetry and eloquence. That is right, we are back to muse and Greek mythology and art referencing. Yeah, yep. As for her Dancestor, Whereas Pieria is a character I am trying to round out and unmarry Sue. Her dance sister is just a love letter to Mary Sue. She is an egotistical asshole that thinks she is absolutely perfect and that everyone loves her. Her name is Marisol. Yeah, Mary Sue, Marisol. Yep, absolutely. And also, she is the Prince of Blood, because the prince is gender locked to only males, but because she is so special, she gets to just have the boys fit. I had so much fun making her. I'm sorry, I was kicking and giggling. I was kicking my little feet and giggling. I'm sorry. I think it's really fun. It's a great concept. I'm sorry. Probably in between all of this art stuff, and maybe even right now, I kind of went on a tirade and did a bunch of screenshots, a bunch of fake Homestuck screenshots for the comic. I had so much fun, guys. I keep looking at these. I think this is like my magnum opus. I don't think it's getting any better than this. I mean, yeah, I'm joking, but I genuinely can't remember the last time I was this indulgent with my art for a fandom. Like, obviously, I still engage with fandom all the time. You know, I literally, the first series I ever had on this channel was drawing Monster High redesigns. I was in Voltron, I read Danganronpa fanfic like it's nobody's business. Like, I am very entrenched in online spaces, but I don't draw fan art for them very often, and like I said, my OCs are for like my own universe and my own comics, and I don't know, I missed overthinking about a character and how they would fit in the story and how the other characters would view them, and I just couldn't stop. Part of the reason why I'm going to be editing this video until the last second is because I can't stop creating. And isn't that exciting? Isn't that fun? Isn't that, like, it's so freeing? Part of me is a little cringed out that it is Homestuck that got me back into this. Like, I wish it could have been Zelda or something. I'm even thinking about doing, like, turning this into a series, because I had so much fun where I could, you know, next video, make my own Zelda OC, I can make my own Dungeon Meshi OC, or, you know what I mean? Just so that I can experience the freedom of being cringe again on such a gross level. Also, in terms of unmarrying, quote unquote, my character, I think I did an okay job, but also, like, all the Homestuck characters are kind of crazy insane, so this really is the right fandom to make crazy insane like character. I just hope that it's like enjoyable, but I don't know, it's fun making them, and isn't that, like, at the end of the day, aren't you just supposed to have fun? I don't know, this is a ramble. I'm not, like I said, I haven't scripted most of this, because every time I try to write something, I cringed myself out so hard, so I was kind of forcing myself to just speak my mind. And if you liked that, let me know. I'll do less scripty stuff. If you liked the video, I highly recommend you making your own Trollsona. Genuinely, I have all of my socials linked in the description box. Go ahead and tag me. Tag me your Trollsonas, tag me your Homestuck OCs. I don't give a shit. I want to see them in the comments. Go ahead and tell me about your Trollsona. Tell me who you ship them with, you know, things like that. Like, write an entire story. I don't care. I will read it. Next video, I'm probably going to go back to the Monster High series. I'm also working on another big video where I start explaining my OC lore because people keep asking for the Max lore. I will absolutely do that. In the meantime, I really hope you enjoy this video, all 12 of you that watched. So sorry. If you liked the video, leave a like and comment. Happy 413. I'm Eddie, signing out.